Rockin' rad dad bods with opinions no one asked for. On current events, politics, and all things dad. It's the Phat Dad Podcast with John, Rick, Casey, and Tyler.
Welcome to the show tonight, everybody. We're trying to get things up and running. We're without Phat Dad John this evening, but we're coming at you live on off week for us, just to discuss kind of a quick topic on guns in America. We've had two mass shootings in the last couple of weeks. We've got a host of gun regulations in Congress right now, and it's the talk of the land. So we thought everybody would definitely want to hear from their favorite fat dads on this topic, because who best to talk to you about guns and gun culture than three fat white guys from the Midwest? Casey, Rick, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me on our off day.
Yeah, it's awesome. Let's dig right in, huh?
Well, yeah, we might as well dive right in. So again, I kind of started the show off here tonight, right? Two mass shootings, tragic events. What say you guys? Obviously, we're all three fathers raising kids in this country. We seem to have an epidemic of these type of things that keep occurring. I'll jump to you, Casey, Fat Dad in Iowa. What do you have to say on this topic?
Yeah, first off, these shootings are atrocious and heinous and pure evil, and my heartfelt condolences to the people who are affected and the people lost. Nobody should ever have to live in fear going to a grocery store or going to a movie theater or doing anything, in public and living in the fear of some crazy person with a firearm. I think when you opened up, two things can be true, right? You said mass shootings. Well, yes, these two events that have happened here recently, one down in Georgia and then the one in Boulder, Colorado, are mass shootings. But also understand that one, if not both, are also considered a terrorist attack or should be considered a terrorist attack. And that'd be the one specifically in Boulder, Colorado. And I think we do a fine job, or our media does a fine job of not really explaining the entire situation and following an agenda and pushing a narrative of one way. And there's a lot of scary things that we've talked about a month ago. HR 8, for example, coming down the pipeline that everybody's pushing. And I tell you what, there's a lot here that we're going to have to try to digest tonight. And I hope you guys are in for the long haul, because this is a topic that I think all three of us are extremely passionate about. And I think people that would listen to our show are extremely passionate about it as well, either on the right or the left. So there's my initial thoughts right there. And I'll pass it over to Rick to see what he has to say.
Yeah, terrible things, the mass shootings. I think we can probably maybe get into the fact of whether or not any sort of gun control would have stopped these things, would have made any difference, and just talk about how important that Second Amendment is to just the fabric of how a democracy runs. I guess that's my opening.
Well, let's jump right in there, because I think you bring up a good topic. Colorado, for instance, has some of the toughest gun laws in the country. Obviously, unfortunately, they have a history of mass shootings, which has led them to enact some new laws and harsh laws. Rick, I'm going to give you the first topic because you brought this up. The gun laws that are being discussed and the gun laws that are in place, do they do enough? Is it enough?
Well, if you go and look at, some of the so-called common sense gun control measures, right? The extended background checks, in particular, it's pretty well documented. You can go back and look at these mass shootings throughout the years, and very few of them would have been stopped by any sort of extension of background checks. Most are bought legally through your federally licensed firearm dealer. So I don't think a lot of those things will make a big difference. You know, I think there might be some things that we can look at tweaking, just for general overall safety. But by and large, it's one of those things that it's a kind of a feel good stamp on a bad situation. When bad things happen, a feel good stamp to put on top of them.
Casey, how about you? What's your opinion?
Yeah. Can this be stopped? Is that what the question was? Is this enough? Is this what we're doing? Is legislation enough? Right now, as far as I'm aware of, all legislation does is prevent a law-abiding citizen from buying a firearm to protect them. And I feel like I'm going to go full Alex Jones here tonight, and that's not my intention. But you look at the case of the Boulder, Colorado shooting. The guy purchased a AR-15 rifle, and he got it. Took the background check was 6 days, or 6 days later after he purchased it, or the background check. He committed the heinous crimes. It goes to show that people who want to hurt other people are willing to wait to hurt people to make their point come across. I don't think there's anything with this guy in particular that would have stopped him from committing atrocities to innocent people, other than people being defensible of themselves. There was a cop even in the store. A cop was killed. What's to say? What's to say if another armed person wasn't there to defend their own life, that guy wouldn't have killed less people? You can't stop crazy, and stopping me and yourselves as a law-abiding citizen from being able to purchase firearms to protect ourselves from criminals, the deranged, and anyone that thinks in that capacity only hinders how we move forward. And I don't think legislation is the right method to combat this culture issue that we're essentially having.
Good initial discussion here. Let's dive in a little bit deeper. And I think it's probably important to share some of the background. Obviously, all three of us are from the upper Midwest. I've grown up around firearms in hunting. I am a gun owner myself. Rick, Casey, how about you guys? What is your background with firearms and guns?
Yeah, I've hunted all my life, 20 years, something like that, with my family. In Iowa, you can only there is a season for rifle, and it's real late, and sometimes it depends on the deer population, but it's mainly shotgun, bow, muzzleloader, black powder hunting. You're able to. They have kind of opened it up to like some 450 Bushmasters and some more powerful rounds, and being able to use a handgun as long as the barrel. There's strict regulations when it comes to hunting in the state of Iowa. Only recently, I would say within the last 3 years, have I started becoming active and doing research in the firearms community and the Second Amendment. And I'm getting to the point now that I'm almost becoming a collector of firearms. I enjoy shooting when I get the free time, and at the end of the day, when I sit down and say, hey, what is my right to bear arms? What does that mean? What does that Second Amendment mean? To me, that is to protect myself, not only from bad people, but from an overreaching government trying to impose authority and, totalitarianism, fascism, communism, however you want to look at it, any ism that prohibits my freedom and my family's freedom. So, like I said, I'm probably a little bit further on the right than maybe some, but I think at the end of the day, me owning an AR or with a 30 round magazine by the way, got turned down today in the Court of Appeals. It is now legal to own a bump stock again. And we can dive into that stuff later. I don't think that should be impeded on by any government or local populace, especially if I'm only trying to protect myself.
Rick, how about you? What's your background with firearms?
So I am a hunter as well. I came into that, probably later, as I reached my college age years. But it's something I look forward to every fall. I am a gun owner. I own several guns of varying calibers and purposes, and so gun owner, proud gun owner. Think more people should be gun owners, and there you go.
Rick, with the kind of the another softball toss in here, tee us up for the next thing to chew on. You mentioned more people should be gun owners, and I think Casey, last week we had a topic that we were discussing in gun regulation came up at that point. You said also, I think during that podcast, that you agreed with that you felt that there should be more guns. Walk us through, explain that to us, explain that to our viewers. How's that going to help? How's that help the situation?
The more people that are armed, you don't see these mass shootings happening at places where people expect there to be armed citizens. So I think the more people who, are responsible firearm owners and carry, I think that's definitely a deterrent. And I also believe, as far as that way, that having that firearm is very important. It's a tool. That's how I look at guns mostly. It's a tool, and the more people that are competent and able to wield those tools, the better off we are.
Yeah, I think to kind of add on to Rick's there is a firearm is a tool. It's not going to I'm going to beat a dead horse here, but if people want to inflict harm, it doesn't necessarily have to be a firearm. And increased gun registration and people's ability to carry a firearm. I think that leads to a society that leads to more individual responsibility, which I would say that our culture lacks sometimes. I would also say that when you infringe upon the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, the most heavily impacted people are actually women. And I don't have the stats on me right now. I mean, you can watch, some Ben Shapiro and all sorts of people talk about the statistics of how the great equalizer of a firearm is for a woman towards an attacker, whether it be whatever violent crime. You look at last year, the greatest firearms purchaser in the populace was African American women in urban cities. They wanted to protect themselves, and what was going on that time? A lot of rioting and looting all throughout the summer. So I think when you get more guns into the hands of responsible gun owners, I think it leads to maybe a more respectful and culture inclined to listen to one another, and then have that ability to defend yourself if somebody wishes you dead. I think that's a big deal, and I think I wish that would be a way to keep moving forward. In the state of Iowa alone, I would say that our gun laws are fairly lenient, and that's what I appreciate about this state, and I would love to hear what you think, Tyler, about increased gun ownership, maybe the NRA a little bit, and dive into some of that you have Rick and I spilling our guts out for.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share my thoughts and opinions. All right, obviously, I agree with what you guys said. The mass shootings in this country, we can't lie about it. It definitely is an American problem. It happens here more than often than that. Part of that is because we do have a gun culture, and we have more guns in the hands of the public than anywhere else. A lot of that, there's a lot of history tied to that. We may or may not have fought a Revolutionary War that I think had a major impact on our founders in writing the Constitution and making sure that that citizens did have the right and the ability to defend themselves. I don't think it's a gun problem. I think there's a culture problem. Somehow, over the last 20 years, we've become, as a society, that this is a way to voice your frustration. That this is something that's acceptable to do. When our parents grew up, you didn't have mass shootings. No one shot up a school. No one shot up a grocery store or a movie theater. But these things are becoming more and more commonplace. What do we do about it? That's a great question. I'm not 100% sure. Can we round up 400 plus million guns in this country? I don't think so. I think that's a non-starter. I just don't foresee that happening. You ban one gun, like you try to ban an AR-15. I don't think that's going to do any good. I don't think you're gonna pry every shotgun out of every farmhouse in this country. I think that's a non-starter. I think we got to look deeper. I think we need to look at the root cause of these shootings and why these keep occurring. We need to probably stop race baiting and laying blame on areas where we don't need to. We need to actually look at why are we doing this? Why is this acceptable? I think it'd be interesting. It's unfortunate John wasn't able to join us as a call to get his partake. He's kind of our culture warrior for the Phat Dads. But I think I'll speak for him a little bit from the conversations him and I had on this last shooting, the last two shootings. I think reduction in church membership and spirituality, whether you're Christian or not, but just the lack of spirituality that we have and how we have a culture that sort of celebrates that. I think that plays a fact. Mental illness is a big deal. Access to health care and treatment to those things. That's all piling on. So that's my take. I don't think you're gonna take guns. I don't think you're gonna find every gun. I think that's probably not the right way to go about it. I don't know necessarily if everyone having a pistol or shotgun strapped to their back as they shop for groceries is the right answer either. We need to have a serious conversation. We need to heal left, right. We need to come together and figure out what type of country do we want to have, and how can we make this a better place for our children.
You wouldn't agree that every pistol attached to somebody's hip walking through a grocery store that would be perpetrator, mass shooter, whatever, wouldn't think twice about going into that store. And I'm not trying to call out just grocery stores and soft targets, but you don't see mass shooters going into a Cabela's. Now, about the time I say that, it probably happens. You don't see them going into a local gun store and committing those same crimes and those heinous acts, or Shields, or something like that. I do agree 100% with what you said, but I also would agree that what if 1 in 5 women carried a firearm? Would that be a deterrent for somebody going into a grocery store? I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I am interested in what that data would look like.
Yeah, I mean, if we turn
at the end of the day. At the end of the day, Tyler, a mass shooter is trying to kill as many people as possible as fast as they can, and dying right at the beginning of said acts would basically defeat their entire purpose of what they're doing. So,
yeah, it comes down to if everyone has a gun strapped to it. Do we have some sort of Wild West scenario where we're busting out into shootouts every time something goes wrong? Is that a good thing? We can make that argument. If everyone owning a gun, everyone being armed, or as you say, 1 in 4, 1 in 5, does that deter? I don't know if it does. I mean, look at these. If we look at these acts, yes, right now, of course, they go after soft targets. Um, at least we think these are planned out, and they're not just kind of a spur of the moment where you have a break and you go somewhere. But I think they still happen. I think they still happen. And then what's the outlook of that? I mean, I think we've all seen police shootouts and what those can look at and how many bullets are flying around when people are exchanging fire. It's not necessarily someone draws a gun, good guy draws theirs and fires and it's over. I don't think that's what this looks like either. I think we'd be kidding ourselves to think that way. I don't want to have to go. I don't want to have to go to a grocery store with a gun on my hip. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have an armed guard at my kids' school. So I think that's the point. I mean, I just as much as anybody, I don't want to give up the firearms that I have. I feel like they're my right to own. I use that. They all have a different purpose, whether it be hunting, sports shooting, self-defense, whatever it may be. Again, I think it comes back to we have to figure out what the heck is happening. Why does this keep happening? And then what can we actually and really do about it, so that we don't have to live in a society. We don't have to live in Tombstone, Arizona. Rick, what say you? Am I crazy?
No, I mean, I agree. Nobody, in a perfect world, nobody wants to have to go anywhere armed. I think I would say that in the state that we live in, South Dakota, I would imagine that if you were able to have X-ray vision and see how many people are concealed carrying at the grocery store, or around town, I think it may shock you. That's my take on it. But I think that we live the part of the country we live in. I think that, we may be talking about that. At least, that 1 in 5 people are concealed carrying almost everywhere they go. That would not shock me here in South Dakota. But back to your point about just the overall culture. We see the gun ownership numbers and the mass shootings. We see that as a causation where, well, there's, that's hard to prove, right? The causation. There maybe is a correlation, but that doesn't prove causation. And there are a lot of things that we as a country lag behind those other countries that don't have issues with mass shootings, as far as just work hours, paid leave, I mean, on and on with different things that could be a factor in the eroding mental health of us, our society as a whole. But that's so I think that the problem isn't just on the number of guns. I think there's definitely other things to look at, but we're always assuming that there's that causation between gun ownership and mass shootings.
Well, what are your guys' stance on, I don't know, increased background checks? I'm trying to understand that. I'm curious what you guys have to say, because there's a lot of proposals going through. Hey, national registry, increased background checks, increased screening, limitations on the types of firearms that can be purchased, limitations on magazine capacity. I want you guys to hit me with that stuff. Let me know your thoughts. And I can't wait. I know you guys are excited to hear mine. So.
So I think as far as, I don't agree with, the bans on assault rifles, semi-automatic weapons. I think the idea is that, assault rifles look scary, so we should ban those when their function is not that much different than, a hunting rifle that's also happens to be semi-automatic. are the handgun that's semi-automatic that everybody carries. As far as I think a lot of those things have probably been addressed already. As far as I think just the sales of firearms. If you go to a gun store, if you go to a gun show, somebody who's selling a significant number of firearms, I definitely think that they should be doing the background checks. I don't think it has to be any more stringent than the ones they're doing right now. And as far as the number of days, I don't know about what your guys' experience is, but I don't. Was it 6 days? If you don't get a background check back in 6 days, then it's just fine. I've never bought a gun where I've had to wait more than an hour for my background check to come back. Walk into Cabela's and fill out the form and walk out with the gun in 45 minutes. And that's if they're busy. And
what about magazine? What about capacity restrictions? I mean, you were talking about hunting rifles versus maybe self-defense weapons and how there isn't much of a difference. Opponents of what you're saying are saying, hey, you don't need 10, 20, 30 round magazines or 50 round drum in an AR-15 rifle, whereas your hunting rifle is typically most likely bolt action, slower. You hold 3 to 6 rounds in that magazine, depending on the caliber and the magazine capacity. What say you on that argument, Rick?
I think the idea that the size of the magazine is going to drastically slow someone down for the amount of rounds they can put down range or whatever is probably kind of a fallacy, because switching on a magazine is not like it's a 25-minute kind of deal, right? It's slapping in and out. So I don't think any sort of capacity on magazines matter, and I don't buy into the argument. I don't try to get caught in the whole, as much as I can, that it's just for guns are for hunting, they're for target shooting or whatever. There are reasons for citizens that own weapons that can shoot quickly and hold a lot of rounds, and that's the protection against a tyrannical government. I can't say it. A tyrant government. So I think that's a very, I think the magazine size to me is a very small and non-starter distinction for me.
I'll agree with you, Rick. Look, at the end of the day, right, these magazines already exist. They're out in the world, along with all these firearms. They're not just going to go away because you pass a law. I think if all you do there is you create more criminals, and we've seen what that does. For instance, in the war on drugs and countless other things that we've tried to, legalize or we've tried to legislate different moralities, and it just doesn't work. You're not going to pass a law that's going to stop someone from hurting someone else. Matter of fact, we know this because we've already have them. Thou shalt not murder. Don't murder people. It's capital offense in some states. Carries a life sentence in others. Like, obviously, the law isn't gonna do anything for us. The only people that follow the law are law-abiding citizens, and someone who wants to go and create mass chaos. They don't care. They're going to find a way to get them. We can't stop people. We can't stop people, drugs, or just about basically anything else from flooding over our borders. So I don't know why we think by outlawing legal purchasing of guns that we'll somehow end gun violence in this country. I think that's a fallacy.
Interesting take. I guess my perspective is be able to deem fit. And before crime bill, which is something Democrats hang their hat on for 10 years. In 2004, the House and Congress, the President Bush, they let it expire. Why? Because it statistically didn't stop gun crimes. That's why. Having less guns or stopping from somebody from buying an Uzi did not prevent less death from firearms. I think when it comes into legislation, controlling the amount of firearms, what kind of firearms, the amount of ammunition that people can have or available to even purchase, and I'll jump into that here in a second. I think that does nothing. And it's not that it's a non-starter. I think it is a starter. It's a starter for people such as myself who are Second Amendment advocates to essentially begin to gather and come together as a group and do everything in our power, legally of course, to take on these issues against people that say that I can't own a firearm or protect myself or my family. You look at some interesting data, and I just found this out last night. You guys may know that it's damn near impossible to find ammo. I look all the time. I have two gun guys. I call their places all the time. Ammunition's extremely expensive right now. AR-15 rounds, the 223, 556 rounds used to be about 25, 30 cents a round. They're up to 50 cents a round right now. So it makes that hobby shooting maybe even a little bit more expensive, and you can't get it. And there's a big controversy that the government's out buying up ammo, and that's not necessarily the case. You look at last year, I think there are 12.8 billion rounds of ammunition manufactured. This year, or they don't have the 2020 statistics, but they're estimating 20 billion rounds of ammunition purchased or made. And that's including the military, who is the biggest purchaser of ammunition around. You can't take these guns off the streets. We know when you look at Chicago and other places, New York City, that have the strictest gun laws in the nation, they also have the highest amount of murders in the nation. I just think everywhere you turn and you have an undefensible or indefensible populace, I think atrocities are going to happen, whether it be with a gun, a moving truck, a knife, an axe, a rope, a bat. The list can go on and on and on. So going forward, where do we go? I'm open to solutions, but I don't think legislation from the federal government is going to stop mass murderers in this country.
I cannot hear anything you're saying.
Yeah, Tyler, you are silent. Your mouth
It would
is
help
moving.
if I unmuted my microphone. I apologize for that. We've been going for about 30
Jesus,
minutes.
John, Tyler, what's going on here?
I know. John sort of left us hanging tonight. He is normally running all of the things behind the scenes, so I've had to try to crash course this about 20 minutes before we were going to go live. But those are just excuses, and we don't settle for them here on the Fat Dads podcast. What's the last topic? One more thing that we want to cover. Rick, Casey, what is that topic? What do we want to dive in here for the next 5 to 10 minutes?
Take her away, Rick.
So I always go back when people start talking about gun control and things like that. I always go back to a quote from Benjamin Franklin: those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And I think that's what we'd be doing if we pass, overarching gun control laws. We're not solving any sort of problems. We're putting a Band-Aid on them for some feeling of security that's not real, and giving up essential freedoms and rights.
Very true. I think that's a powerful quote from Mr. Franklin. Genius of a man. Casey, I got a feeling. I already know your opinion, kind of your last thoughts on this. I'm assuming you are they can pry them from your cold dead hands kind of guy.
I think it's a little extreme when you say it that way. And
it's for the viewers. It's for the viewers.
At the end, yeah. And I think that's what, the left would want me to say. And probably some of the extreme right as well. And I wouldn't say that's the case. But I don't think you taking a firearm away from me to defend my family from a would-be intruder, somebody who wishes me harm, or worst case scenario, I never see this happening, but the government overstepping their bounds and committing atrocities, much like the Nazis did in 1933. I don't think my pistols that I own or my AR-15 is hindering other people's freedom. And when people think about, well, what's the limit? Do you think that you should own a bazooka? Do you think that you should own a tank? Should people own cruiser missiles? I would say no, that they shouldn't. They shouldn't own that stuff. I'm not saying they can't. I think it's ridiculous. That's my own personal opinion. But if somebody's rich enough or dumb enough to buy a cruiser missile and blow themselves up, I would, I'm not the person to say that they couldn't own those things. I think you need special licenses or something. Maybe there's something more to it, but you will not take my weapons from me. They are a part of who I am and what I believe. The Second Amendment culture, pro-Second Amendment people, it's the exact same message. There's 5.5 million NRA members who all own numerous firearms, who have never, ever committed a mass murder. There was protests in North Carolina, I think it was 2019, where tens of thousands of firearm-loving people got together and protested outside of the state capitol in North Carolina. Zero incidents of violence. And it can be done, and those are responsible gun owners. And attacking us is not the message or the solution to what the real problem is. And you guys talked about just as much as I do. It's a culture issue, and how we nail that down. That's beyond me. I'm just a guy in the middle of Iowa, that has multiple firearms, loves them dearly, loves shooting them, loves being active with them, and hopefully in my lifetime I'll never have to use them for self-defense.
First off, who are you to tell me that I can't cruise around in a nuclear submarine, Casey?
Right. Exactly right.
What I want to do
Can run
with
a nuclear submarine, right? So.
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, we're probably all. This is a topic that where our opinions differ a little bit. They're also come back to very similar. I'll tell a personal story, personal experience. On two separate occasions, we live outside of town. We're out in the country a ways. We have had to call the police on two different occasions, and I love the police. This is not speaking ill of them, but where we live as well, you're talking a couple-person sheriff's team, usually at night when we've had the two incidences. It's one person on duty covering the whole county. They don't get there real fast. You're talking
Tyler,
15.
do you know what the average response time is in the United States for a police officer?
20 minutes.
I believe it's 7. I believe it's 7 minutes, and that's nationwide. A lot can happen. Somebody breaks in through your door. A lot can happen in 7 minutes. I tell you what, I used to be able to run a mile back in high school when I was a lot skinnier. 7 minutes. I'm just saying, guys.
And you're spot on. And that's the case for us, where it's 20, 30 minutes before that officer is going to arrive. A lot can happen in 20 to 30 minutes. I think there's a famous quote or semi-famous quote or viral quote that's going around. And if I'm not home and someone's breaking in and it's just my wife with our 3 kids, I'm not telling her to reach for the 7-round clip or the 5-round clip or the double barrel shotgun. Go for the big ones and do what needs to be done to defend our children. Maybe that sounds extreme. I don't know. But if someone's decided that they want to do harm and try to enter our home or something like that, I feel like it is our right to defend it any way necessary.
Amen.
Amen. Well, that is the show tonight. We're about a quick 45 minutes from the Phat Dads on kind of gun violence and gun control here in America. And again, I think we all agree we have to do better just as a culture. We have to we got to come to grips and actually come to some real solutions to ending these type of atrocities. They just can't keep going. And we've got to probably end the political fighting and get to the heart of the matter. So I want to thank Casey and Rick for joining me tonight. Great job, fellas. You did absolutely fantastic. You sounded way smarter than me. So with that,
hit like and subscribe.
Hit like and subscribe.
Right?
Hit like and subscribe. That's exactly right. Well, thanks for paying attention. Thanks for watching. And I'll take John sign off tonight. God bless. Take care of your family, and we wish you all a wonderful night. See you later.
Thank you.